You're listening to Miss Opinionated, real life, real perspective, and unapologetic truth. Here is your host, Divine Priestess.
Self-abandonment doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like saying yes when you want to say no, staying when you know you should leave, and shrinking yourself to keep the peace. A lot of us were taught that love meant sacrifice, but no one told us there's a difference between compromise and abandoning yourself. Today's episode, we're talking about the cost of self-abandonment, how it shows up, why we do it, and not why, but what it takes to stop. So, welcome to a new episode of Miss Opinionated. I am your host, Divine Priestess. And before we get into this episode, first off, can we talk about the visuals? So, if you are watching this video via Spotify or YouTube, you see the quality right here? Do you see the quality? We got some flowers now. I am always looking for improving things, and I'm very happy because the quality of the video is this 4K? You see just the lighting, everything. I feel like the setup is pretty nice. I'm very happy, especially because my makeup, even though only thing I'm wearing is BB cream. And I think that is worn off because I went to work and then came home to decide to record. But in comparison from now and earlier episodes, I feel like things are like leveling out. Now, don't get me wrong, my makeup looked real good in person, but for some reason on camera, the makeup looked very dramatic in some videos. But also, your girl is losing weight. So I think that's another thing. If I'm not as puffy in the face, like it's not as round, simply because that was stress face. That was stress. Your girl was stressed. That's why I was looking like Mrs. Puff. But anyways, let's just go ahead and jump into the episode. So this episode, as mentioned, is about self-abandonment. The title is called The Cost of Self-Abandonment. Okay. Let's look at the definition of self-abandonment. Self-abandonment is the act of disconnecting from your own needs, truth, or boundaries to maintain connection, avoid conflict, or gain approval. And a lot of us don't like to put names on things, but you know how I am. I like to put a name to things. I like to put a face to it. Because why not? When we can identify something, then that leaves room for improvement, that leaves room for progress. And a lot of us absolutely need to start doing that. We have to. If you truly want to improve like you say you do, then let's put a name on it. Some really great examples when it comes to self-abandonment is going to be saying yes when you mean no. And I have conversations with people all the time about this, of them getting into situations and then they will complain about said situation. And I will always say, well, why did you say yes? You didn't have to say yes. You could have said no. And a lot of people, their response, oh, because they're going through this, they're going through that. People are always going through things. If you know you don't have the bandwidth to take on another person's problems, then don't. Say no. I have learned early on that if you say no to a person, some people may sit there and be very dramatic about it as if like they're fish out of water. But a lot of times when you say no, they're going to go to somebody else. And if that person say no, they're going to go to somebody else. If that person say no, they're going to go to somebody else until they get a yes. So do not take on something as if you are the end all be all, like that person will not be able to survive if you tell them no. Point blank, period. Another example is going to be ignoring your intuition. We have to stop doing that. A lot of the times when our gut is telling us something, when spirit is telling us something or showing us something, it doesn't make sense right away. But that's because we are not in that place yet. We have not gotten on the bridge. I'm not even going to say we have crossed that bridge. We haven't even gotten onto the bridge yet. So, of course, it's not going to make sense. It's not going to make sense until that thing happens. I have this, I'm really good with numbers, right? I'm good with dates. Spirit always gives me dates, and I would tell people something's going to happen on this day. And people, they'll be like, well, what's going to happen? And my response is, I don't know yet. I won't find out until I get closer to that date. Simply because with that, it's the whole thing of like lining the steps. So if you continue on this path, this is going to happen that day. But nonetheless, ignoring your intuition, you are abandoning yourself. When it comes to your spiritual gifts, everyone has an intuition. Everyone has the ability to communicate with their spirits. Not everybody can communicate with other people's spirits, but having the ability to communicate with your spirits, everyone has that. And if you want that communication to strengthen, then you have to start listening to your intuition. The more you listen to that little voice, right, your higher self, your spirit, the more you listen to that, the louder and stronger it gets. Now, sometimes it will get strong without you listening because it's like, hey, like this is serious. Okay. Another one is staying in unhealthy dynamics. Again, we tend to stay in relationships, we tend to stay in environments longer than we should, knowing that it's not good for us. Simply because a lot of times we want to see it through. We always want to see the best in people. We always want to. Now, I'm an optimistic person, but I'm also very realistic. Even though I feel like something good is always going to happen, I also know when to pick up and when to leave. In relationship, however, I do try to be nice and I will stay around, but I tend to be like, spirit, make that person, like, get that person out because I don't want to hurt their feelings. It's easier if they just hurt mine because I'll get over it, right? But we're not here talking about that. Another one is going to be prioritizing everyone else's comfort over your truth. Again, set those boundaries. If people don't like it, they don't like it. One thing that I have been sitting with these past couple of days, because I have been sitting with the spirit of cacao. Now, cacao, this may sound crazy to some people, but I have a really good connection with plants. I have a really great connection with nature, with earth. And sitting with cacao is ultimately for the heart. It's good for opening the heart chakra. It's good for releasing, right? It is going to be good for detoxifying the body, cleansing the body, but it truly is really good for the heart medicinally as well. So I've been sitting with cacao a lot more these past few days. And with sitting at that, I cried twice within a 12-hour period because I've been sitting with my truth. And my truth, a lot of people have not been able to understand, or some people try to tell me how to feel. And it's like, oh, don't. And it's like, I'm a human. Let me have my human emotions right now. Let me process that and let me release it because I'm vocalizing my frustrations and I need to. It. I need to vocalize these things instead of having it pent up because, yeah, if you ball up energy, you ball up your emotions, it does affect your heart chakra, but also you ball it up long enough, that will manifest into issues within your physical body, right? We'll see things such as people will have like really bad upper back pain. A lot of times it's associated with the heart. You're holding on to something. You need to release it. You need to let go. Sometimes it can get very extreme as manifesting into things that really require medical intervention. But we'll get into that another day. Another form of self-abandonment is going to be suppressing your emotions. And I really just sat here and talked about that. But so I don't feel like I need to go a little bit deeper into that. But yeah, suppressing your emotions is a form of self-abandonment. Because how did we get to this point in our life that expressing your emotions is something that you're just supposed to not do, right? You need to swallow whatever you're going through. You don't have to express it to me. I always tell people, you don't express it to me unless you want my opinion. Go express it to spirit. Go express it to whoever you pray to. Go express it to them. And not only do you express it, but also me, I take it a step further. I want the solution. I want that weight lifted off of me. I want clarity on the situation. I want confirmation on, right? I ask for a list of things. But suppressing your emotions is a form of self abandonment because you're not allowing yourself to feel. You're not allowing yourself to process. Society, unfortunately, for some of us, especially for Black and Brown community, the culture of, good example, go depress them dishes. You depressed, what you depressed about? What are you sad about? Damn, I can't have an emotion. I can't, like, there's a lot of things that's going on that not everyone is involved in. So we have this thing in our community to where we're not allowed to feel. I'm not going to say women don't, as if men don't either. It's different levels, right? With men expressing their emotions, a lot of times they get called gay, right? They get told they're not a man, right? They're, you know, I'm really working on not cussing, but that they're, perras, 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 perros, perras, they're bitches, essentially, right? For women, it's the whole thing of women have always been struggling. Women have always had to, face these emotions and move forward in their life. And, you have to be strong. You can't be weak. And da, 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 da. It's always these list of things. So for us, Black and Brown folk, we need to stop suppressing our emotions because that also trickles into our way of communicating with each other. Communication in the Black and Brown community sucks ass unless you have gone to therapy. If you've gone to therapy, great. Communication tends to work, tends to get better. I mean, but without that therapy, communication is horrible because a lot of times when a person communicates how they feel, again, the person that they're communicating to tends to take it as a personal dig. And it's like, I'm saying how I feel is not directed towards you. Like, don't put the shoe on, Cinderella. And even if it was directed towards you, I'm just telling you how I feel because the way that I perceive it. You see what I'm saying? So we have to stop abandoning ourselves to make other people comfortable. Again, the whole thing of avoiding conflict. I'm the type of person, I don't like conflict. I don't like conflict because I know I'm gonna take it to a whole nother level. So I just, but I'm working on myself. We all self-improvement, right? But it's that whole thing of we have to start expressing how we feel. If you don't like something in your friend group, express that. So the way it doesn't just pile up and then it gets to a point to where now you guys no longer talk and there's no reconciliation. Because while one thing may have, boiled the pot over, but let's be honest, it was a lot of things that you let slide. And so now it has reached that breaking point. So the person that's on the receiving end, they're like, what are you talking about? Always call it out. That is another way to strengthen your connections with people because the people that love you and truly want to be there for you, I'm not going to say that they're just going to receive it with open arms, but it allows dialogue. Let's move on, shall we? Why we self-abandon. Self-abandonment comes from several different things. One of the things is going to be survival conditioning. Another is going to be fear of rejection, people pleasing, as well as trauma bonds. So let's hit these four notes separately. But the first one being survival conditioning. Childhood environments where needs weren't safe and learning that love had conditions. We see this in relationships because a lot of relationships are very much conditional, right? You scratch my back, I scratch your back, right? it's and I'm not saying that love is 100% unconditional. A lot of times matter of fact, scratch that, because I do have unconditional love for like my mother. Yeah, I got unconditional love for my mother. I accept my mother for who she is, and with that, I know how to move in regards to our relationship. But also, I'm not sleeping with my mother, right? So, but if I love you, I love you, and I accept you for who you are. So I guess learning that love had conditions, I guess that makes sense. I'm really sitting here processing that. You know, I'm really sitting here thinking about that. Like, is love really unconditional? And I think when we hear that love is unconditional, that it means that there aren't boundaries. I think so this is a really good conversation piece. And I kind of wish I had someone sitting right next to me to talk about this. But childhood environments where needs weren't safe. That is another thing of self-abandoning. Okay. In a lot of childhoods, some people didn't grow up with their parents. Some people grew up as the only child, or you did grow up as the older child, or maybe the youngest child. It's so funny that everyone always forgets the middle child. But in those environments, because I'm really sitting here reflecting and trying to come up with a really good example with the survival conditioning of why self-abandoning. I mean, a really great example for the self-abandoning of the survival conditioning, it can definitely, the hustle mentality. We can revisit that one more again. The survival mentality, the hustle mentality, because when you are in that survival mode, you tend to sacrifice more than just your free time, your time to enjoy your friends, enjoy family, right? The time to really travel or just sit with self because you're out here making money. That is a conditioning, that is a survival conditioning, and it's also self abandoning. And I'm going to tell you why it's self abandoning. Because when you are in this hustle mode, again, I gotta get it, I gotta get it, I gotta get it, I gotta, blah, 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 right? When you're in that, you are neglecting yourself because you're not getting rest. You are sacrificing your peace. You are abandoning your emotions and how you feel and sit with that. I sat with spirit because one thing about it, I was sitting here thinking about my hometown, because right now my hometown is on the brink of running out of water. It's on the brink of being the first city in Texas to run out of water. And a lot of people don't know that I'm from Corpus Christi. Okay. And with that, I think about how growing up in the projects, a lot of my life, most of my life, living in the projects, put me in that hustle mentality. It also, living in California and living in a military household, emotions was not a thing. I had to put the emotions on the back burner because no matter how I felt, I had to make things happen. And that's where I get that hustle mentality of there's no excuse. Because I used to get my ass whooped all the time. And I would always being told there's no excuses, there's no excuses, there's no excuses. And so again, that conditioning, that survival conditioning, because number one, I didn't want to get my ass whooped no more. Number two, yeah, I did learn ways of making things happen out of nothing. But as an adult, and especially as a kid, that's not something that should be normalized. Because with that, I started to put my needs, my mental needs, my physical needs, and my emotional needs on the back burner for my financial needs. And all of these things work together perfectly because for productivity reasons, when you take breaks, when you take rest, you tend to be well rested, which increases productivity. However, I was working myself like a goddamn workhorse because of this conditioning of I can't go back to the project, I can't go back to living the certain way, there's no excuses, all these different things. So my childhood environments weren't safe because it put me in that survival mode and have been in survival mode for decades. Okay. Another thing was learning that love had conditions. That's not my experience, but that is the experience for some people is love is conditional. You see that when it comes to parents and their children. Some of them, the only reason they got praise or the only way they felt love is when they have accomplished something, which made that parent proud of them. If they didn't do something that made the parent proud, because the parents a lot of time will go brag to their friends, oh, look what Jamie has done. Look at what she's done. Okay, it come with conditions because the moment that there was some quote unquote failure, you get ignored, right? You don't exist. You come back with, you see what I'm saying? So survival conditioning is one of the things for self-abandonment, why we self-abandon. Another one is going to be the fear of rejection and the wanting acceptance that trickles back into what I just said about learning that love had conditions. Because again, we want praise, right? Acknowledge what I've done. I've succeeded. I've done this. I've done that. And again, that can also trickle into being that workhorse because you are working for the approval of others. You want that recognition. Not granted, we all want recognition for our achievements, but it gets to a point to where it becomes unhealthy. There is a thin line between a lot of things, right? There's a thin line between love and hate. There's a thin line of being a generous person and being a people pleaser. There's a thin line of being a overachiever, an underachiever, right? There's a sweet spot in between of like, because a lot of time when people talk about overachiever, again, being an overachiever to workhorse mentality. We'll get into that another day. But the wanting acceptance does that, where did that stem from? In this conversation that we're having, I want you to reflect back on your life and think about how did you get to this point? If we are on the journey of healing, how did we get to this point? So may these things trigger something in you to start reflecting and start getting out of that. Because again, I'm going to constantly say it. I was not brought to this world to work down to the marrow. I was brought here on earth. Yeah, I got a mission. We all got a mission. But outside of that, I'm here to enjoy my human experience. The human experience is not forever. Despite what the government and these billionaires is trying to do to make people live eternally, I don't know why. Well, I understand why they want to do it. But for other people, I don't understand why. I don't know what's up with these palm color people in their desire for life eternally. Like, damn, you've already fucked up whenever you're trying to fuck. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, going on. Avoiding abandonment by abandoning yourself first. We see this in relationships that I don't see this a lot with men. Now, I'm not saying that men don't abandon themselves in relationships, but we see this heavily when it comes to women, especially because of conditioning of get you a good husband, be of servitude, don't worry about the career, focus on your family. So, yeah, we see the abandonment of self in relationships, but also abandoning yourself first so the way you avoid being abandoned by another person. And again, that's a trauma right there because somewhere in your life you were abandoned and you want to be chosen now. Okay. Maybe y'all should talk about this in therapy. But that rejection. You don't want to be rejected by someone, so you're willing to change yourself so the way a person can love and appreciate you. And that's a condition. That is a condition right there. I done had men sit here because my weight fluctuates, but my weight fluctuates for various reasons. But one of the reasons is due to stress from overworking myself. Okay. And so I have been in relationships, if we can call it that, situations as well, that, matter of fact, the last relationship that I was in, he's told me that if I gained weight, if I got fat, he would leave me. I'm looking at the camera and I'm looking at the computer. Camera, computer. He told me that if I got fat, that he would leave me. I came across a TikTok video of a lawyer saying like one of the craziest things that he saw in a prenup was that if the wife gained 10 pounds, for every 10 pounds she gained or something like that in their marriage, she would lose $10,000 in alimony. Condition. Okay. And again, abandoning yourself because now you are turning into like a puppet for this person. You're becoming like a little doll. You're becoming this little thing that's on a shelf for this person so they can be happy. But what about your happiness? Point blank period. Ain't nobody in life, their needs are not, and I say this as a single person. You got kids, that's different. But nonetheless, no one's needs, your partner's needs, should not be greater than yours. And I say that in a sense of, again, my ex wanted me to stay thin, didn't want me to put on no weight, but it's like, well, why don't you see what's happening, right? Maybe it's because I'm putting on weight because I'm stressed and I'm working hard, right? Maybe I'm also very happy with how I look. Maybe I like the way that my body is changing. So my happiness now has to change so the way you can continue to desire me, so you can continue to want me. So this is what I mean by like a person, your partner's needs should not outweigh your happiness. That's it. That's it. C. People pleasing. Peacekeeping as identity. Being easy, quote unquote, easy to love. And again, that peacekeeping as an identity. I didn't want to argue about my whole weight thing. I didn't want to argue about that. I would sit there and laugh. But then it got to the point like I would always like start to tune my face up and just go silent because it's like, what the fuck? I sat here and I told someone, I said, yeah, I remember we were in New Orleans and I wanted a snow cone because I just like snow cones. And I remember he made a comment about my weight. First off, I have an hourglass figure. Okay. So I don't like wearing pants. I don't like wearing skirts really because it's not like necessarily suitable for my frame. Like I have a really high waist. So wearing things that's not high waisted tends to make me look off. I'm also very heavy chested. And so shirts tend to make me look a little bit bigger than what I am. Like people who are heavy chested know what I'm talking about. You tend like shirts don't look well. Like you really got to wear form fitting things, right? And so I was wearing some high waisted pants, some cargo pants. They didn't really go all the way up because literally my waist is super high. And so he said I had a fupa and talked about it and was like, "You're getting fat." And then I didn't say nothing. I just let it go. Oh, okay. So then he was like, let's go get a snow cone. And I'm like, I don't want a snow cone no more. You literally just called me fucking fat and now you want me to go eat? What kind of shit? you know? But that peacekeeping as an identity because even though that was not a peaceful ride back to Texas, it was peacekeeping in a sense of like, I don't want to go back and forth, and I don't want this to turn into a bigger thing than what it is, right? However, one of my biggest lessons that I've learned, and Spirit is definitely walking me through, is voicing how I feel, voicing my opinion, right? You have to start sticking up for yourself. Because one thing about it, the people that are for you are going to be for you. You voice your opinion, they're going to be, because one thing about it, a lot of people voice their opinions to me and I stick around, like, okay, cool. But it's sometimes when I voice my opinion, I become difficult. They not for me, right? They keep me around because they see that I'll let things slide. I'm a very understanding person, and I always try to gain an understanding about a person, how they feel. But I don't always get that same courtesy back, right? So a lot of times when I give my opinion, they don't like it because I'm gonna call it what it is. I'm gonna say the truth. Okay. So people pleasing, that peacekeeping is a form of self-abandonment. And we have to stop doing that. Because again, whose peace are we keeping? It damn sure ain't ours. Get things out in the open so the way there can be progression. That way you guys can move forward, right? Not just only relationships, but also within the workplace, within the friendships. I promise you, when you let things go, when you get that weight off your shoulder and you say how you are feeling, you express your comments, you express your concerns, all of that. If that makes the relationship stronger, it makes the relationship stronger. If that relationship break, that relationship was always going to break. It don't matter how long you continue going, it was going to break. Because another thing is, what I sit here and tell a lot of people is that we are friends because I put in the work. The moment that I remove myself, we wouldn't be friends, right? I'm not saying anything wrong. I'm not saying anything to cause a fight, and that shouldn't cause a fight. But it's like, let's be real about this. Who wants to be friends with who? Who wants to be in whose life? So that people pleasing thing, put on the back burner. Because also, when I think of this, I think of the Ten of Wands energy. The Ten of Wands is from tarot, for a lot of people don't know. The Ten of Wands typically will deal with being overwhelmed. It would deal with being stressed. It deals with carrying burdens, especially burdens that are not yours, that constantly taking on things from other people's plate. Stop taking on other people's things. Comes back to the whole saying no thing. Say no. Trauma bonds. Staying connected despite harm. Also confusing struggle with love. I am very grateful for the relationships that I've had, and I'm also very grateful that they ended. Because one thing about it, things with people in your life, it should never be that hard. Yeah, there's challenges. There's trials. But it ain't going to be difficult. It ain't going to be extremely hard. It's not going to be like trying to fit a puzzle piece into a puzzle that don't go with, right? It's not like that. Yeah, there's bumps in the road, little disagreements here, but again, you work through that. You communicate. A good example of a trauma bond. I watched this movie. Um, it's with, what's that, Blake Lively as. Let me find this movie first. Let me go to Google. Okay. I leave it here. Blake Lively. What the heck is that movie that she just did? It Ends With Us. It Ends With Us. When I watched it, at first, like, I didn't really like, when it got to the end, I was like, oh snap, like that man was really abusive, right? But they have a trauma bond. They have a trauma bond. And she didn't really, I feel like she didn't like put all of that into perspective until the end of the movie. But it should never be that hard. Like that relationship, when they played it when she was in the hospital or when she found out what after she had the baby, whatever, of what really happened in that relationship, that was really hard. She should have left a long time ago. And it's this whole thing of we tend to stay in stuff longer than we have to because of the time that we put in. I don't want to start over or whatever. We've been friends for so long, whatever. It should never be that hard. If you are having to chase a person down to get them to communicate with you, if you are having to chase a person down to get them to spend time with you, if you have to force someone to show up for you, if you have to force someone to be a part of your life, leave it where it's at. Because now this whole relationship is becoming toxic. Yes, people grow together. Yes, there's growing pains, but it ain't never that hard. I'm not always going to say it's going to be peaches and cream, but it ain't going to be that hard. There's a difference between jumping a hurdle and climbing a wall. Okay? Okay. The cost of self-abandonment. Now, there are emotional costs, there are relational costs, there's spiritual costs. On the emotional side, there's resentment, there's burnout, there's confusion, there's anxiety, and then you also begin to have low self-worth. There's additional emotional costs, but the biggest one is resentment. We see this in relationships of people staying in a relationship for the kids, a lot of times because they stay for the kids. And then it gets to a point to where they just really had enough and they start to resent that person, right? Or in a relationship, both of you guys are working for a career. However, one person begins to take a step back to pour into another person's career. And out of the promise, once I get on, I'm going to help you get up. But then that never happens, right? So now there's resentment. And now it becomes a whole thing. I'm going to stay around because I don't put this much effort and I want to make sure I get something in return. Again, it's never that hard. It's okay for two people to be going separate paths. Walk the separate paths because there's always going to be another person that's going to come in. And if you and this person are meant to be together and meant to be in each other's lives, it will happen. It may not happen now. It may happen later in life, right? So it's that whole thing of don't abandon your emotions. Don't abandon your dreams. Trying to be in support of another person. Again, the self-abandonment thing. Burning out. That workhorse mentality. Burnout. Now you're having high irritability. Now you are easily agitated. Right? You're lashing out on people. It's because you are burned out. You're overwhelmed. You're overworked. You are stressed. Another thing is going to be confusion. You don't know if you should pour into yourself or if you should continue going after this thing or continue doing whatever for this person, right? Now you're going back and forth of do you show for yourself or show for this other person, place, or thing. Anxiety. Anxiety is one of those things that It's a telling sign for a lot of things. It's a telling sign for a lot of things. Anxiety now, even though I'm a person that likes to look at the realistic side of things, I'm very logical, but also do see the spiritual side of things as well. Anxiety, depending on the person, depending on the situation, anxiety is one of those things that I feel is linked to your intuition. I feel like anxiety is one of those things that it's also linked to a way spirit communicates with you. And I say that because, good example, me staying at a job. Now, I've been saying as a 6-year-old little girl that I am not meant to work. And when I say that, people are always like, what do you mean? I mean, I ain't meant to punch the clock for nobody. I'm meant to do my own thing, right? I'm meant to do my own thing. I can collaborate with others. I can partner up with others, but clocking in, not my thing. And so I was at a job for 2 years, and that was the longest job that I've ever had. I'm going to put that out. That was the longest job I've ever had. I was at a job for 2 years, and I started to get heavy anxiety towards the second year. Like, I started to get sick. Like, I was repeatedly getting sick, constantly stressed. Like it was just a lot. It was a whole bunch of other things that was happening. And I sat and I prayed and I prayed, and I knew I was supposed to leave the job way beforehand. I knew it wasn't something that I was supposed to get comfortable in. It was just something to help me support my goals in life. But I began to settle into it and become like, oh, I'm just going to keep working this until my thing takes off and whatever the case may be. My anxiety started to increase heavily. My anxiety started to get to a point to where I had to take time off for my mental health, my emotional health, because I started having heart palpitations, all these things like that. I was abandoning my needs to ensure that the people that I was working for and the people that I was helping, their needs were met. Because I didn't want to let them down. I wanted to show up for them. But it's like, what about me? Because one thing I said, I think it was probably like the second time that I got sick, second or third time I got sick, I ended up having to go to the hospital. Because I was sick for a couple days. But then it got really bad that I started having real bad chest pains. It was the worst. I had to go to the hospital. And they gave me some type of injection that really helped. It was so great. But I sat there and I was like, who's going to show up for me? If I don't show up for myself, who's going to show up for me? Who's going to take care of me? No one. It's me. So it's like I'm abandoning myself for the needs of a company that really, if I'm out of work, you think they're going to pay me because they're like, oh, you have bills to pay, so we're going to still pay you so the way you can maintain. No. Don't abandon yourself. And then as well as the low self-worth. If you do something long enough, your brain starts to receive it as fact. It starts to receive it as true. Okay. You start to think you deserve less. You start to view yourself less, and you start to think, oh, this is all I ever going to be. Not true. On the relational cost, attracting one-sided relationships, being taken for granted for, and unclear boundaries. And a lot of us have experienced that. Be honest. I'm going to be honest. I definitely have gone through that a lot. A lot of relationships that I have, and this is why I say I'm grateful for the relationships that I had, and I'm even grateful that they didn't work. Because those were definitely one-sided. I sacrificed my dreams. I've sacrificed my well-being just to make sure that they were taken care of and provided for. And that's crazy for me to say. I was sacrificing my needs to make sure they were taken care of on multiple levels. One-sided, because I also did not get that in return. They weren't willing to sacrifice things for me. They weren't really willing to do what was needed to make sure that I didn't carry that weight alone. Constantly being taken for granted of. Because, oh, you always do this. Can you do this for me? Can you do this for me? Do this for me? to the point to where I was like, okay, I'll do this and I'll just take care of my things later. There was a guy who was a situationship for about 3 years. One thing he would always say was, put myself first. Do not stop making money on his behalf. Go do what I need to do. Stop putting him first. So I appreciate him. Even though we never got into a relationship, it just never was meant to happen. But he always made sure to tell me to take care of myself. Don't worry about him. Take care of myself. You need people like that in your life. And then also unclear boundaries is another way of self-abandoning. Put things on the table, put things on the forefront right then and there, so the way each party can make a conscious decision. I am quick to tell someone, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to friendships, I'm a needy person. I don't mean I'm needy of you have to have your nose up my culo. I mean needy of you need to check up on me. You need to be present. You don't have to talk to me though. Don't talk. Just be there for me. Show your support. Show up for me, right? Show me that you care. Don't just say it. I need you to show it. I need you to regularly check up on me. I don't want to always call you. I want you to call me as well. A lot of friendships, like I got a message right now. Oh, you must hate me. I don't hate you. But also, this relationship, this friendship, only survived because I was the one continuously reaching out. And I made it very clear that I'm not going to keep reaching out no more because I need you to show me that you want me in your life. Because I'm showing you I'm there for you. Right? So put these boundaries and make the and let them make the decision of, do they want to be there for you? Do they want to go down this path with you? Right? All the things. On the spiritual level, the disconnect from intuition, the disconnect from your truth, and just ultimately loss of alignment. Because again, the moment that you take care of yourself, you put yourself first, you take care of your needs, you are very aware of your needs. Anything that is not supportive of that will be removed. Anything that is not of support of that, you won't even have to worry about it. You won't have to try and force things to happen. Okay. And again, the disconnect from intuition, when you stop listening to your needs, your wants, that gut feeling, there's a disconnect. And now you're wondering why you're going through all of these lessons and things that you're going through is because you're not listening to your intuition. You're not honoring your truth. You're not honoring your desires, your wants, and your needs. You're not listening to that. Because you're putting on a back burner for a person that may have never been your person. It was never going to be, right? I sit here and say a lot of experiences I have experienced in life was because I was not listening to my gut. A lot of things that I went through in life could have easily been avoided if I would have listened to my gut. A lot of my lessons are solely because I have not listened to my intuition. Plain and simple. If I would have listened to my intuition, this wouldn't have happened. If I would have listened to my intuition, this could have been avoided. It's really that simple. And again, not listening to your intuition moves you out of an alignment. You're going on a detour now. All right? So every time you abandon yourself, you weaken the relationship you have with you. And you are important. I sit here and I say this a lot of time to someone. Because you always get in these situations with people of always doing things for people. And then will complain about doing things for people. And I will always say, you have to take care of you. The only people outside of you have to worry about are your children. No one else comes before you and your children. Plain and simple. You have needs that need to be met as well. So you cannot sacrifice everything about yourself for your children. I'm just going to say that because I sit here and I listen to parents get to a point to where, and begin to resent their own children and blame their children. Oh, I stopped doing this because I got pregnant with you. I stopped doing this because I had you, and they didn't ask you to do that. You could have still made it happen. There was a way to still make it happen, right? So stop abandoning yourself. Now, yes, take care of your children, be there for your children, but also do not forget that you also have yourself to take care of. Do that. And that brings me to a whole nother conversation when it comes to having children. I feel like a lot of people need to be honest and really think about children before having children. I always tell people my biggest thing of not wanting children once in my 20s. Of course, there was a point in time where I did want to start having kids in my late 20s. But then when I sat there and thought about it, as I was progressing in life, that I was not in a space mentally, emotionally, and financially. I was not in a space. I feel like emotionally and mentally be in a space of wanting children and taking on that taking on that task of raising another human, of teaching another human, of caring for another human outside of yourself. If you are already dealing with some things mentally and emotionally, having a child is not going to cure that. Take care of that first. Because I see what a lot of parents, if they have children, and then when they get older and their children get older, they sit here and they be like, I love my kids. I'm so grateful, but I wish I would have waited. They're still battling things mentally and emotionally. They're still battling trauma, still facing trauma that they never faced. And a lot of times I see with parents that they try to heal that trauma through their kids. And that's not how it works. But that's another story for another day. Let's move on to culture check. So how self-abandonment is normalized. Being the bigger person. Oh, keep the family together. You guys are blood. Don't make things harder. Sacrifice being praised, even when it's unhealthy, as well as praising unhealthy sacrifices or praising sacrifices that are unhealthy, especially among women and caregivers. Again, because it's this whole thing of women have to sacrifice their individuality the moment that they get a husband and the moment they start having kids. That they have to stop being who they are and they are put in this box because now they are mothers, because now they're a wife. Why do they have to change themselves? Why? Why do they have to abandon who they are? Abandon their creative expressions, right? All these different things. Why? The whole thing of abandoning yourself to keep the family together. Oh, you guys are family. You guys are family. Don't. I sit here and I'll always say, family, at the end of the day, they're still people. You just happen to share blood with them, happen to share DNA. But do not go out of your way. Do not abandon, again, your needs. Don't abandon your truth simply to keep family together. Disrespect is disrespect. Point blank, period. If someone crosses that line, especially if you have voiced that line and they cross it, at that point they cross it intentionally, but also move forward. Oh well. You don't talk to that cousin no more? Oh well. I got family members that I don't talk to no more. Yeah, when I see them, hey, how are you doing? But that's it. I'm not a kid no more. So I'm not going to disrespect you. I'm not going to talk crazy to you. But I'm not a kid no more. And what we are not about to do is talk to me like I'm a kid, as if I don't sit here and handle my own without the help of others. Don't disrespect me. Being the bigger person. That is a thing that I've been seeing a lot on TikTok as of recently, of being the bigger person. Let me go see if I can find the clip for a second, because I want to say I have reposted some videos in regards to being the bigger person. Let me take a quick second because I remember the face. I really be just reposting stuff. Oh, Lord. Okay. I don't know if I'm going to find it right now. I'm going to have to look at it a little bit later, try to see if I can find it a little bit later. But yeah, being the bigger person. Again, you are putting the needs of someone else before your own. Being the bigger person, now you're having to bite your tongue. Now you're having to hold back on your truth. Because if you say how you feel and you share what that person has done, because a lot of people don't realize what they're doing. Some people are doing things because they're so accustomed to it, they're so used to it, that they don't realize that's some messed up stuff. So, being the bigger person is protecting another person's feelings while you are pushing yours to the back burner. Being the bigger person, I feel like when people are back then, when people would talk about being a bigger person, they're just talking about conducting yourselves in a certain way, of not causing a scene. Oh, be the bigger person, right? Because we're here, we don't want to cause a scene. There's a way to expressing yourself and a way to communicate without causing a scene. Okay, express how you feel. You don't like something, say it right then and there. Because if you don't like something and you don't say it, that person is going to continue to do it again. And then it's going to get to a point that they're going to do it and do it and do it, and they start doing it in front of other people. And now you want to say something. Now you done pop the lid. And that person's like, I don't always do, like, why you got a problem with it now? Or you showing out because of other people? You don't like something, say it right then and there. I don't like it. Or ultimately just remove yourself. That's another option too. Just remove yourself completely. And if they ask why you left, why you don't do this, why you don't do that, this is why. Okay. So being the bigger person sometimes is shrinking yourself. Being the bigger person is shrinking your emotions. On an energetic level, you're closing up your throat chakra. And again, you're putting a cage over your heart chakra. Because we can sit here and be like, not vocalizing yourself isn't an emotional thing, but it truly is. We speak with emotion. And a lot of people, when they want to think of emotions, they want to think of someone being crying. Oh, you're being emotional because they're crying or they're enraged. We have many emotions. We are all emotional beings. We're human. So do not shrink your emotions and do not shrink yourself to protect another person because you don't want them to feel bad. I said people say, oh, I don't want them to feel bad. Screw making them feel bad. If they feel bad, oh well, they will get over it. Trust me, they will. But you want to put things out in the forefront so the way there can be a change. And if that person does not change, leave them in the dust. Now I really want to find this video. Let me see. Bigger persona, bigger person. Because I remember, okay, there are a couple things when it comes to being a person. I want to find the actual one. Okay, so we're going to listen to this one.
Being the bigger person. Fuck being the bigger person. That title cost you more than it ever gave you. Being the bigger person meant swallowing it, letting it slide, and acting unbothered when you were absolutely bothered. Being the bigger person meant you carried the emotional weight so everyone else could stay comfortable.
You dress. That's it, right? You're making other people comfortable. So we have to stop doing that. And we have that heavy within the Black and brown community because a lot of times the older generation will disrespect us. And we're always like, oh, respect your elders, respect your elders. They're older. No. This is the issue that I have within our community. Because we always compare ourselves to white people. But one thing I will say about white people and why white people have the audacity that they have and why white people have no problem saying how they feel was because it started as a childhood. Yeah, we sit here and be like, you talk to your mother like that? You talk to your father like that? That's crazy. I could never say that. However, it allowed for them to talk about it. Now, some ways that white kids will talk to their parents was very extreme, but seeing some of like they will really express how they feel and they will really talk about it, and then it's like they have no problem communicating how they feel. Now, in a Black household, when someone tells you something, you shut up, don't say nothing, you don't get the last word, shut your mouth, listen. Right? It's the same thing. And so we grow up with that of you and your friend groups having conversation and you're telling them how you feel and you're like, stop talking, stop talking. Right? We want to cut people off because we want to have the last word. We don't want to hear their side. That is a programming that we have as from childhood. That is a programming that we have. So we need to undo a lot of the program. We need to undo a lot of the teachings that we have from childhood. From a child, we were taught to abandon ourselves. We were taught to keep our mouths closed. We were taught not to express how we feel. Fuck how you feel, right? It's that whole thing. We're taught to bite our tongue so that way we keep the peace in the house, so that we don't get in trouble anymore, so we don't upset the adult anymore, right? We weren't taught how to effectively communicate because people was getting their ass whooped. I was getting my ass whooped all the time. I remember I sat here and said I didn't want my little brother hanging out with me and my friends because I wanted me time. You know, I got my ass whooped. I got my ass whooped. I was in middle school and I said that. I got my ass whooped for that because it was like, what the fuck you know about me time? Because I don't want my little brother hanging out with me and my friends. What the fuck? You know what I'm saying? So then it was like, when I would get in trouble, I would get in trouble for dumb stuff, just dumb stuff. And when I would try to say why I did something, it was like, don't want to hear it. And it's like, well, you don't want to hear my reasoning. Like, there's a good reason why I did it. There's a good reason why, you know? So it was like, we didn't have that communication. And I feel like that's where a lack of understanding, because when it comes to the conversation of gentle parenting, I always tell people, gentle parenting, it is meant for communication. It is meant for you to explain things to a child instead of just saying, because I said so. Well, why? Right? Explaining things. So that we need to start gentle parenting each other. Gentle parenting. We need to have communication. We are losing the art of conversation. We are losing the art of listening to understand. We are always wanting to respond because we want to prove a point. We don't want to accept when we're wrong. And that goes both ways. And that, again, is keeping the peace. Because also starting to see it a lot, starting to see it on these male-dominated podcasts of like, women are supposed to just suck it up and take it. Women are just supposed to take the abuse because a lot of men don't want to acknowledge that they are abusers. You may not be physically putting your hands on her, but you are mentally and or emotionally abusing her. Okay? But she has to suck it up because she's supposed to be the caregiver. She's supposed to be of servitude. Yeah. The moment I hear a man say some dumb shit like that, I'm like, you are not the man for me. You're not mature enough for me. But anyways, let's go on. Because we are definitely pushing time. I'm not gonna lie, this whole podcast was supposed to be like 45 minutes long. My opinionated take. A lot of people think that they are being loving, that they are being loyal or understanding, when really they are abandoning themselves. I had someone sit here and tell me, because a group of people would sit here and say I was not loyal. So they told him that he shouldn't trust me because I'm not loyal. Because I left them. Mind you, never hung out with them like that, never kicked it with them. But I was disloyal because I picked up and left without giving an explanation. I had to put myself first, Lucius. I had to put myself first. But love should not cost you your self-respect. Loyalty should not require self-betrayal. And boundaries are not cruelty. This is what I hate when it comes to talk of loyalty. Because a lot of times when it comes to loyalty, people want you to put your needs behind. Because you need to be here through thick and thin. You need to always be here. It's like you don't exist. And people don't know how to maneuver in their relationship. They don't know how to move together. They don't know how to tango. They don't know how to bachata. They don't know how to salsa, right? A lot of people want people to just follow behind them. They want followers. They don't want friends. They don't want partners. They want a follower. They want a worshiper. They want a slave. That's what they want. They want you to betray yourself to prove your loyalty to them. They want you to betray your morals, your principles, to support them and whatever they got going on in their head. Love does not cost self-respect. You see this in some relationships. You can watch movies with this, right? But it's a real thing of the partner having a very important dinner. Oh, I need you to wear this. I need you to dress like this, right? A lot of times when it comes to men and women, some men will want their women to, maybe she doesn't dress revealing, but they want her to show off a little bit more. Maybe laugh a little bit harder. Maybe, be a little flirtatious so that he can get that promotion. That's self-respect, right? Or, that coercion. Yeah. And boundaries are not cruel. I always say if a person does not respect your boundaries, they just don't respect you. They never did, never will. You can be compassionate. You can be empathetic. All those things without self-sacrifice. And peace that costs you your truth is way too expensive. It's way too expensive. Because again, I want you to get this through your head. You are an individual. You came into this world by yourself. You have yourself to take care of. You have your own needs and wants to take care of. It is not your responsibility to be everything to someone, especially in relationships. I always tell people, there's two people in this one relationship, two people coming together in that relationship. However, you guys still have your own individuality. You still have your own thing. You have your own relationships outside of this relationship. You have your own friendships. You have your own likes and dislikes. You have your own hobbies. That does not include that other partner. And so a lot of people, when they get in a relationship, they lose their individuality because they want to be all in. So they start sacrificing things about themselves that brought them together in the first place. And again, it comes to that whole abandoning thing of, if you have things outside of this relationship, then you don't, right? So it's that whole thing. Let's move on, because again, we going. We taking a lot of time with this. The rebuilding of self-trust. Ways to rebuild your self-trust is going to be listening to yourself again, making decisions that again align with your goals, that align with your principles, that align with your morals, honoring your no. If you tell someone no, it's no. Point blank, period. Don't reason with it. Don't try to let them convince you and talk you into it. Anytime I tell someone no and they try to convince me, I automatically get upset because you don't give a fuck about me, is what you're saying. I just told you no. So why are you trying to convince me to go against that? If I tell you no, you should not try to force me to say yes. What in your mind will make you like that? Me? What? Anyways, setting boundaries is another way of self-trust and being okay with disappointing others. I want all of you guys to take out a pen and paper when you have time, or take out your notepad. I want you to write down your boundaries. What are things that support you as a person? Right? What are your boundaries? What are things that you don't like, right? I want you to put that out, because it's easy for you to say it in your head, but when you write it out and you see it, because some of y'all will realize that you have no boundaries. You're literally gonna see that you have no boundaries. So I need you to write it out what your boundaries are. Because when you see it, it's a visual picture. Because now when someone crosses that boundary, you'll call it out. Okay? You'll call it out. One thing when it comes to behavior, you have to address the behavior on site. You do not address the behavior down the line, because at that point the person's not gonna. They're gonna. I did what? I did, huh? Remember, I'm an ex behavior technician, an ex registered behavior technician. So addressing behaviors is something that you have to do head on. You have to call it out immediately so the way it can change. If you see a behavior and you don't correct it, and you wait down the line, it doesn't make any sense. And it's really just going to look like punishment at that point. And again, it's not going to be corrected because it's not something that's. When treating colds, you don't start taking cold flu medicine after the cold and flu has already been dealt with. You take it on site. Yes, there's prevention. Let's look at the boundaries as prevention. Now, when the cold and flu happens, you start taking the medicine to fix that and then go from there. Because once it's gone, now you prevention. So let's look at boundaries as a prevention. Let's look at what you're going through right now is that cold and flu symptom. You need to treat that. All right. Be okay with disappointing others, making those decisions to align, making decisions that align. I sit here and I tell people, and this deals with the future. I sit here and tell people that I want you to visualize what your future look like. And this deals with relationship with people. I want you to sit here and think about your future. What are the things that you want? Now ask yourself, is this relationship supportive of that? Is what you are doing today supportive of what you want in the future? The future is never going to happen if you don't take those steps now. It's not just going to miraculously happen because you say so. No, there's steps leading up to it. If you have stairs around you, I want you to stand at the bottom of the stairs and look at the top. Now, if you close your eyes and you just sit there and say, I'm going to get to the top, I'm going to get to the top, and you open your eyes, is you at the top? No, because you have to take the steps to get there. So again, setting boundaries, making decisions that align with what you want is going to be supportive of you getting there. And that's people, places, and things. We have to start moving intentionally. We don't move intentionally. As much as we say we do, we don't. Because we don't make the necessary sacrifices. A lot of times we put our relationships ahead of our own needs. That's friendships as well as romantic, platonic and romantic. We tend to stay in environments that are not supportive because we want to make everyone else around us happy. We want to look like the good, worker bee. We want to look like we're unproblematic. Cut it. Cut it out. There's a reflection question for you guys of what would I change if I chose myself? What does it look like when you put yourself first? I sat here and I've had this conversation with a friend. I was like, I'm choosing myself, and choosing myself looks like me traveling. I am no longer working to take care of things that can wait in this moment, things that I can get to later. But right now, I'm about to travel more. Right now, I'm about to go create these beautiful memories and experience it and see the world. Especially as a single woman with no kids, I'm choosing myself. Why am I putting other people ahead of me that ain't my husband or children? Craziness. So choose yourself. Stop putting your friendships before your own self. I understand you don't want to disappoint your friends, but at the end of the day, you still have you. You can't show up to everything, and that's okay. I tell people I show up in the way that I show up, and I accept people for how they show up for me. I may not always physically be there, but just know I'm always a call away. You need someone to talk to, you need advice, I'm here for you. But for me physically being there all the time, that's not gonna happen. And so the people that get it. And the ones that don't, they not here. Right? We're You have to accept people for who they are. And it's either you do or you don't. And if you do, you have to learn how to move with them. Motivational moment. Choosing yourself is not selfish. Honoring your needs is not wrong. Protecting your peace is not cruelty. The people meant for you will not require you to self-abandon yourself in order to stay. They will not require your self-abandonment to stay. And that's true. I'm very grateful for the friends that I have because, and I know they appreciate me because I have a friend that we don't talk all the time. We talk every now and then. We check up in on each other. She has her way of doing things. She has her way of processing, and I as well as mine. But never do we require each other to process the same way the other processes. She goes on a lot of periods of just being by herself, like camping, like she won't talk to people, like she cool. But she knows that when she really needs it, she can call, right? And the same goes for me. And matter of fact, my friends, the one that's been my friends, they definitely will sit here and tell me I'm way too understanding for other people, and that I really have to put myself first. And when I got to that point of like I'm putting myself first, they were like cheering me on. They were like, finally, about time, because all these other people are disrespecting you, and you are too understanding. So they are in support of me being selfish, and that whole selfish thing, I do tell people everyone is selfish. Even the person that feels like they're not. We are all selfish in some shape, form, or fashion. And being selfish is okay. Because why? You have you and only you. You have you to take care of. You have you to look after. So, of course, you are supposed to put self first. Whatever you have left over, if you choose to give, then great. But you don't have to. There are billions of people in this world. We are not losing sleep because one person want to be selfish. There is always going to be people that put themselves first, and then there's always going to be overly generous people. Always, point blank, period. So we can't sit in this sense of, well, what if everyone was selfish? Everyone's not going to be selfish. I can tell you that right now. Everyone's not ever going to be selfish. 100%. But people tend to be selfish in their own way. All right. So honor your needs. Everyone around you honors their needs. So why aren't you? Why aren't you? Your friend needs your help, but you also just worked 4 12-hour shifts. Get that rest. Your friend should be understanding that you are exhausted. And if they create a fuss about it and really mad, they were never your friend. Not leave them where they at. Because when my friends can't come to my things or they can't talk on the phone at the moment, because, okay, cool, hit me up. Or I'm going to just call back later. It ain't no big deal. However, I do have people that are just like, I'm not worried about you because you definitely are not my friend. I always have to I always have to reach out. And I don't get no response back, or it's like, damn, I reach out and it's like, shit, you're emotionally dumping on me? No. Now we are going to close out this episode because we are at 1 hour and 21 minutes. I do want to point out that if this resonated with you, I want you to reflect on where you have been abandoning yourself. Do not judge yourself. A lot of times when we become aware of something, we tend to be very hard on ourselves. We tend to judge ourselves. Don't judge yourself. Don't be hard on yourself. I want you to see it. I want you to acknowledge it. Like, dang, I really did do all that. Oh my goodness. But do not go into this dark place because you realize what you were putting yourself through, what you were allowing, what you were tolerating. That is for you to begin to make the change. You cannot dwell on the past and sit in it. Remember what I have said. When we look at the past, we are looking at it just for reflection, so that way moving forward, we do not repeat those same cycles. Okay? I want to thank you all for listening. This is Miss Opinionated. Please share this podcast with your friends, with your family, with whoever you feel that needs to listen to these podcast episodes. Share it with them. Hell, follow Miss Opinionated on TikTok. Subscribe to Miss Opinionated, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, or iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Follow Root and Rituals on YouTube, because that is where you're going to find the Miss Opinionated podcast. So on your search bar, you can type in youtube.com/Divine Priestess. I'm Divine Priestess on TikTok, Instagram, as well as YouTube. Check me out. Please support Casa de Aguas Dulces. Casa de Aguas Dulces is a 501c3. It is a Houston-based nonprofit fostering growth and development mentally, spiritually, and emotionally within the Black and Brown community. Now, people outside the Black and Brown community can attend, but I'm going to let you know we talk about a lot of Black and Brown stuff, because this is a space for us to heal. A space for us to progress and move forward, not only as an individual, but as a community, because we need spaces for ourselves. Our ancestors done different things, and we must reconnect to that for our progression in life as well as spiritually. mentally and emotionally, we got some things that we got to work through. So that space is for that. It is a healing space on multiple levels. So please go support Casa de Agos Dulces. You can find Casa de Agos Dulces on TikTok as well as Instagram. Another thing, Casa de Agos Dulces is seeking a permanent sanctuary. Right now, Casa de Agos Dulces operates out of different places. Casa de Agos Dulces needs its own space so that way we can continue to put out events, so we can continue to do rituals, so we can continue to do ceremonies, so we can have classes, have workshops, all these things. We need our permanent space. So if you can, please visit Casa de Agos Dulces. There's a link in the bio on my Instagram, on my TikTok, as well as Casa de Agos Dulces on Insta. There's a link so you can donate to the support of us getting that permit space. Donations also assist with putting out free events. The less donations, then we got to start charging, right? We have to start charging y'all to attend to things. It can't be free, So, with it being a 501c3, C3, when you donate up to $500, you can begin to claim that on your taxes. I don't make up the rules. That's the rules of donations to be claimed on your taxes. It must equal 500 or more. Okay, put that out there. So please go support, go donate, all that great jazz. You guys have a great rest of your week. I'm logging off. Again, I'm Divine Priestess. Thank you again for tuning in and listening, and be on the lookout for some exciting projects. Just want to say that.